All right, so here's our new space of our garden. We opted just to put some electric fencing around here. We have one line of electric that goes around the original part of the garden. So I'm standing in a space that's a gate that we just close and then hook the electric up so that this part is connected to our electric fencer at night to hopefully keep the critters out. That's the goal anyway. So this new space here, we used our chickens to create and using some deep mulch. And it's working pretty well. I'm pretty excited with what's going on here. Let's take a look. Okay, so we've got, I forget how many different kinds of tomatoes we've got going down the bottom here. I wanted to do a cattle panel trellis, but we had this woven wire. This was the original fence that we actually used for the chickens. We had this conduit, which was we purchased for the cave bean trellis last year. We weren't using it, so we kind of made a cattle panel in a way to be able to trellis these tomatoes up. Really excited to see what this is going to look like by the end of the season. So right now I'm kind of using that same method I showed you earlier, where I just have one string and I'm wrapping the tomato plant around it. I've got some that have just gotten to the bottom of the fence, and then I'll just start attaching them to the fence as they grow. Now again, I'm experimenting a little bit. Like here is an Amish paste tomato plant. I allowed it to have 2 leaders, so 2 lines going, or 2 stalks going up. Here's some beautiful tomatoes, but something to observe. Technically, like this side would be considered the sucker because this right here was the first blossom and it's on this side. Now here we've got 4 tomatoes and like probably a couple more developing right here. And then we go up about 8 or 10 inches. We've got a tomato, we've got some blossoms developing here, and then we've got some blossoms here. So that's like the main stem of the tomato. Now if I go up the other side that I'm allowing to grow, there's no tomatoes until about 18 inches up, and there is the first set of blossoms. So I feel like what I'm going to find, and what I've observed before when I haven't been able to like prune it down to 1 stalk and I like left a second stalk, that second stalk doesn't produce as well as you think it's going to. But I'm trying it out this year. So this one right here is an Amish paste that I'm letting split and make like a Y. The next one down, that's an Amish paste as well, and I'm just keeping that to 1 stalk, and I'm going to compare how they do. And then I have 2 more that I did the same thing with. So I have 2 Amish paste that I let Y, keeping both of those, and then I have 2 that are just a single stalk. And I kind of did every other, so it's like not like, well, that garden space produced better than a little bit further down. I kind of alternated it just to see how it does. And then I tried, like, kind of in between every plant, I've got a bean plant. Some of them are a string bean, some of them are black beans. I'm kind of curious to see how the production goes, giving them that much space in between the other bean plants. And something I observed last year, when I had a row of tomatoes and I did a row of beans beside it, I felt like I kind of got a second flush on the plants. Like they grew, they slowed down a little bit, and then they perked up and grew again. And so I didn't know if that was just the kind of the companion planting between the beans and the tomatoes, if the beans were helping them out, being a nitrogen fixer or not. So I tried it up here. I threw some beans in up here. Now, so we've got Amish paste down there. That's an Amana orange, German pink. This one is a Paul Robeson. This guy here was supposed to be a Paul Robeson, but that is a Roma. Romas are a determinate tomato. They grow to a determined size, they produce a determined amount of blossoms, and then they're done. Everything else in this bed is an indeterminate. So the indeterminates I have pruned, I have trellised. The determinate I don't prune. We're just going to leave that be. That's only going to get about 2.5 feet tall and produce its fruit. So kind of looks funny with all these tall stringy tomato plants that I have tied up. And then this guy here is kind of short and squat, but next year I will remember to label my tomatoes. I actually bought a set of, well, popsicle sticks, craft sticks, with the intention of making sure I have lots and lots of ways to label and I don't screw it up this year or next year. Down the center of the this new part of the garden is where I put winter squash. I've got 5 hills of squash in each side. I threw in some sunflowers in both of those rows just for beauty, to attract the birds, attract the beneficials, and for my own joy, and I have truly enjoyed them this year. Also around each hill of squash I planted radishes. Again, the idea there is you let them blossom, and those blossoms bring in the beneficials that help, the beneficial insects that help control squash bugs and cucumber beetles. That is just one of those things that's the absolute bane of any organic gardener's existence is squash bugs, cucumber beetles, and vine borers. But last year I had better luck in my garden doing that, so we're trying that this year. You can also like net your squash, put like bug netting over your squash until it blossoms, till you gotta let your pollinators in. I haven't ever tried that. I'd really rather not if I didn't have to. So this is what we're trying right now. Healthy soil, bringing in beneficials as much as possible. Now, both sides, I just fertilized both sides of these because I've got some, if you can see, yeah, I'll just walk down and show you in a minute. There's like one squash hill where the leaves are beautiful, the color is beautiful, and it looks like a nice size. And then there's some kind of in between, and then there's some that are pretty stunted. I don't like the color, a little too yellow, just not growing well enough. So I use Neptune's Harvest tomato and veg fertilizer. Always follow the directions. I follow the directions, measured and everything. So I just fertilized both sides. We're supposed to get some rain this week, so I'm hoping between some fertilizer and getting some good rain on these that we get a good yield. This is the most space that I've been able to dedicate to winter squash in a very long time. Actually, we haven't ever been able to do that in this house, in this home, which we've been here for 8 years now. And actually, our last house, we had so much trouble with cucumber beetle, squash bugs, and vine borers that we actually gave up. We quit growing winter squash while we were there because we just wouldn't get anything. We were just feeding the pests, so we just quit. So fingers crossed. Actually, I was just shooting a video today when I was fertilizing it, and I had a ladybug riding around on my arm, so I'm gonna say that's good luck. And she jumped off somewhere actually right behind me, so she's hanging out in our garden giving us good luck for our winter squash for this year. So that's what we're hoping for. Okay, so this is one of those plants. I used my water out of my rain barrel, so there was some dirt in it. But so this one looks okay. Like, let me put my hand here so you can get an idea of the leaf size. Now going over to this side, now there are different kinds of squash, but like this one, I'm not real happy with that color, and I would like those leaves to be significantly bigger and a darker green. And these little guys down here look very sad to me. So there's one. This one, about the same. Excuse me, Mr. Slug. Don't need you on my plant. And then these look pretty sad as well. This, I believe, if I'm remembering right, is some spaghetti squash. This plant right here, this is the way I would like this to look. Like the color, the size, I mean, that's bigger than my hand. This is what I would like the squash to look like overall. This is the only hill that looks that way. I'm not sure why this one looks so much better than others, but that one looks really good. These are really small as well. And then kind of actually, as we go down to this end of the garden, this squash, like again, this color I don't like very much. Actually, we're gonna pull. So I like the radishes there for the blossoms, but we're getting a little crowded. So these guys are kind of sad. Hopefully, like I said, fertilizer perks them up. Getting some rain this week will perk them up, so let's see there. Look at one of our gorgeous sunflowers. These are just little guys. I actually forget what the type was. It was a mix of different kinds of sunflowers. We've got this one here, and there's actually a couple up here at the end of our potato bed where we're heading here. Now, here are some potatoes that I actually planted. I just laid those on top of the soil. I like removed the mulch that was up here, laid them on the soil, and then covered them with a combination of potting soil and soil conditioner, and then brought mulch over them. They look really good. Now, recently I posted a video that says like tomato math, always add more. My husband, who always tries to rein in the amount of tomatoes I plant, he always feels that I plant too many, or likes to pick on me that I plant too many. We were talking about what to plant in this space right here. He encouraged me to plant tomatoes. So I took some of the tomatoes that were over on what I call my table of guilt, the table of plants that I have not gotten to and don't have a home, and I plopped them in right here. They were little and like spindly and starting to yellow, and right now they're looking quite lovely. I don't remember which kinds exactly we have. This one I know is a German pink. That second one I don't know. Those two are Amish paste, I'm fairly certain. I can tell by their looks. And the last one, I don't know. We will be surprised together when that starts to produce later. And then here is another chunk of Romas. So I have Romas I have some Romas down there in the main part of the garden. I have some Romas up here. And I have an accidental Roma over here with the determinants that's not supposed to be there. But again, I need to get better with how I label my tomatoes. It's a goal for next year. We're always trying to get better, right? Last thing, we'll go say goodnight to the chickens. I'll show you the lupine, which is just absolutely gorgeous this year. And then it's time to go inside. So the green stalk this year, we decided to make our basil tower. We planted 5 different kinds of basil. A couple of them didn't do well. Like actually our Genovese and our lettuce leaf basil didn't do well, but we did get our cinnamon basil to germinate. We got some lemon basil to germinate and holy basil. So my plan for this is actually to be making some teas, hopefully some cold teas, like make it with hot water, but then iced tea, and also for hot tea during the winter. So that's the hope. I still have that. Isn't that? I just think that is just so cool. Okay, so there is the new part of the garden. We've got potatoes, tomatoes, winter squash, beans, radishes, but our plan is not to eat those radishes. Those are just for bringing in our beneficials. So let's say goodnight to the chickens. let's check out the lupine up here, which is just so beautiful. Last year it was gorgeous. This year it is even more so. We planted like a little butterfly garden up here near our shed, and I just think these are possibly one of the most beautiful flowers I've ever seen in my life. There's so many colors in each blossom, I feel like. And these over here, I think, even though there's not, there's not as many blossoms on this one, like, look at that. Isn't that just gorgeous? So this has been bringing me much joy, looking up through the garden. See, oh, look at that sky. Oh, that is just beautiful. That's one reason to garden, just to make you come outside and see that. Just over my, well, not the barred rock, Goldie, or I believe, we're pretty sure she's a Rhode Island Red. She is our boss chicken. Anytime we come over, she comes over to yell at us. Oh, man. Thank you for joining me in my garden for this very late June, heading into July garden tour, but we did make it. We did get it done in June. I hope you're having a wonderful day wherever you are.